Picture this. You've spent years, maybe even your whole life, working toward one single goal. And now, the only thing standing in your way is a conversation, a test. For millions of people trying to become U.S. citizens, this is their reality. So what does this final hurdle actually test? What knowledge does a country decide is so absolutely essential that it's the price of admission? It's a really fascinating question, isn't it? Because the answer tells you so much about how a country sees itself. This isn't just about memorizing facts and dates. No, it's about understanding the core ideas, the shared stories that are supposed to hold the whole thing together. Well, the official answer is found in a list of 128 questions. They cover government, history, and civic principles. And you should think of this list as more than just a study guide. It's really a kind of blueprint, a document that lays out what the U.S. government believes every citizen should know. So today, we're going to unpack that blueprint. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the nuts and bolts, the rules of the test. Then we're going to dive into the three big pillars of this blueprint: the machinery of government, the shared story of the nation's history, and the symbols that are meant to bring everyone together. And finally, we'll connect all the dots to see why this is so much more than just a test. Okay, first things first, before we can get into the what, we got to understand the how. The structure of the test itself is actually pretty simple, but the numbers tell a really interesting story. 128. That's the big number. It's the entire universe of potential questions that an applicant needs to know inside and out. I mean, think about that for a second. The entire civic identity of a nation, boiled down to this one set of questions. It's the full playbook, covering everything from the Constitution to the major conflicts that have shaped the country. But here's where it gets interesting. Applicants don't get asked all 128 questions. Nope. During the actual interview, a U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services officer just picks 20 questions from that master list. So right away, there's this element of chance. You have to know the whole playbook, but you're only going to be quizzed on a few of the plays. And the passing grade? 12. Out of those 20 questions, you have to get just 12 right. That's a 60% score. It's a simple pass-fail moment that for many is the finish line after years and years of waiting and preparing. Now, the system isn't completely rigid. There's a built-in consideration for older long-term residents. So if you're 65 or older and you've been a legal permanent resident for at least 20 years, the rules change a bit for you. The study list shrinks to just 20 specific questions. They only ask you 10, and you only need to get 6 right to pass. It's sort of a nod to the fact that civic integration is a marathon, not a sprint. So now that we know the rules, let's explore the first major part of the blueprint, the government itself. This section is all about the machinery of American democracy. How is it built, and what are the core ideas that make it all run? The test starts right at the very top, with one of the most fundamental questions you could possibly ask. And it's not a trick question, it's the foundation of the entire system. The answer, of course, is the U.S. Constitution, but just knowing the name isn't enough. The test requires you to understand why it's the supreme law. And it really does 3 main things. It sets up the structure of the government, it defines and limits what that government can do, and most importantly, it protects the basic rights of the people. So, how does the Constitution stop any one part of the government from getting too powerful? Well, it uses this brilliant idea called the separation of powers. It's a simple but really radical concept. You divide power among different branches so that no single person or group can ever get total control. And this system gives us the 3 branches, each with a really clear primary job. You've got the legislative branch, or Congress, and they write the laws. Then there's the executive branch, the president, who enforces the laws. And finally, the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, which reviews the laws to make sure they're fair and constitutional. Write, enforce, review. It's a constant cycle of checks and balances. Okay, next up is the nation's history. And this part of the blueprint, again, it's not just about memorizing a bunch of dates. It's about understanding the shared story, the key moments that have really shaped the country. This timeline gives you a quick look at the major milestones the test covers. It goes from the nation's founding documents back in the 1700s, through the Civil War that nearly tore it apart, all the way to the global wars and modern challenges of the last century. Every one of these points is like a key chapter in the story. But the test also focuses on the people who wrote that story. It asks not just what happened, but who made it happen. For example, here's a question about one of America's most, multi-talented founders. And when you look at all the possible answers for Franklin, you see why he's on the test. He was never a president, but his influence was just immense. He was a diplomat, an inventor, the first postmaster general. He started the first free public libraries. This shows that the test really values contributions beyond just holding the highest office.
And the history isn't just stuck in the past. It includes the ongoing struggle for the nation to live up to its own ideals. The way the test describes Martin Luther King Jr.'s work frames the civil rights movement as an absolutely essential chapter in the American story, a fight for equality for all Americans.
The final pillar of the blueprint is all about shared identity. I mean, what are the common symbols and ideas that are supposed to unify a really diverse country of over 330 million people? It starts with the most visible symbol there is, the flag. The test requires new citizens to know its language. The 13 stripes, they represent the foundation, the 13 original colonies that declared independence. And the 50 stars, of course, represent the nation as it is today, one for each of the 50 states. And then, of course, there's the soundtrack to that unity. The test asks you to know the name of the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. It's another one of those core pieces of symbolic knowledge. A song that was born in a moment of conflict that grew into a symbol of national identity. So, we've looked at the rules, the government, the history, and the symbols, which brings us to the most important question of all. What is the point of all this? And the answer is that this is designed to be so much more than just a trivia quiz. It all comes back to this. This line is from the Oath of Allegiance that every new citizen takes. The civics test is the foundation of knowledge you need to understand what this promise actually means, to know what the Constitution is, how the laws are made, and the history you are swearing that you will defend. Which brings us right back to where we started. This test is the official blueprint for American citizenship. It defines the knowledge a nation considers essential, but like any blueprint, it can be revised. So the question for all of us is, what might be missing? If you had the power to add one question to this test, to add one more cornerstone to this blueprint of citizenship, what would it be?